The American Civil War was fought mainly in the United States between 1861 and 1865. Of the 34 U.S. states, 11 southern slave states individually declared their secession from the U.S. to form the Confederate States of America, or the South. The states that remained loyal to the U.S. were known as the Union, or the North. The causes of the conflict are many and complex, and the events such as the Nashville incident involving the port of Southampton are easily overlooked. Nevertheless, this event had a significant impact on the course and outcome of the conflict. In 1862, the Southampton Times reported, on Thursday evening, the 23rd of January, a party of men belonging to the Nashville, the Southern Confederate ship blockaded in Southampton docks, went into the tap room of the Bell Beer Shop in French Street and called for some refreshments, which they received. They remained there drinking and enjoying themselves for some time, but about 9 o'clock they were surprised by seeing two of the crew of the Tuscarora come into the house. Some conversation took place which soon merged into high words, and one of the Nashville men, becoming exasperated at some remark which fell from one of the Yankees, jumped from his seat and knocked his cigar from his mouth. The ire of the Northerner was naturally excited by this insult, and he immediately pulled a pistol from his pocket, snapped it at the man, and ran off, followed by his companion. The landlord, no doubt feeling somewhat uncomfortable at the probability of a battle between North and South being fought out on his premises, cleared the house. Previously, near the mouth of the English Channel, the Confederate ship had captured and burned the Union merchantman, the Harvey Birch. The Nashville ran alongside, forcing the Harvey Birch's captain and his men to collect their possessions and leave their ship. They allowed the crew around an hour to gather their things and board the Nashville, but once they had done so, the crew of the Confederate vessels unceremoniously burned the merchant ship and continued their voyage to Southampton. When she visited Southampton for repairs, she was the first southern ship to visit a European port, and her appearance caused a sensation. The London Times reported, "Great excitement has been created here by the arrival in our waters this morning of a steamer of war bearing the flag of the Confederate States of America, and which has since come into dock, where she now lies snugly berthed in the outer tidal basin. She came up the river about 8 o'clock and anchored off the mouth of the River Itchen, with a Confederate flag flying at the peak and a pennant at the main." There was heated diplomatic correspondence between the United States Minister in London and the Foreign Office about the exact status and maritime rights of a ship which the Union Navy regarded as nothing more than a pirate. The Nashville was badly damaged by Atlantic storms, and she went into dry dock at Southampton to have the necessary repairs carried out. But her captain soon found that Britain's proclamation of neutrality meant that there was no question of his ship's military capability being enhanced. The work of repairing the Nashville was completed, and she was ready to leave when, on the 8th of January 1862, the situation changed dramatically with the appearance at Southampton of the USS Tuscarora, one of the new screw corvettes built for the Federal Navy, with a complement of 200 officers and men and armed with 9 heavy guns. Her captain was under orders to avenge the burning of the Harvey Birch. The two ships, about a mile apart, watched each other closely, and reports of the illegal presence of armed men at night in Southampton docks began to appear. They were from the Tuscarora and were clearly spying on the Nashville. For example, the northern captain stationed men on the pier to watch and report every move until the port superintendent ordered them off. This cat and mouse game was to continue for almost a month, and HMS Dauntless was sent to Southampton and anchored where she could observe the protagonists, with HMS Warrior and HMS Trafalgar both put on standby in the Solent. The American ships were informed by the Admiralty Superintendent at Southampton that under the terms of the Foreign Enlistment Act, if warships from 2 warring countries were in the neutral port at the same time, their respective departures must be at least 24 hours apart. To ensure this was observed, another warship, HMS Shannon, arrived at the entrance to Southampton water. There were arguments about the interpretation of the act and which ship should leave first, but finally on the 3rd of February the waiting game came to an end. "The Nashville has got away to sea," reported the London Times again on the 4th of February. The dispatch steamer arrived from Jersey reports that she saw the Nashville pass the Tuscarora in the Solent off Cowes. The latter had her guns run out and steam up, and Her Majesty's frigate Shannon was lying close by, also with her guns out and steam up to prevent the Tuscarora moving and to enforce the 24 hours law, the Nashville having the priority of start. Although the newspaper headlines were quick to claim that the Confederate ship Nashville got away, the outcome of the incident was not so clear-cut. In the long term, the northern side claimed the outcome served their interests because it demonstrated that the British government was truly wedded to the principle of neutrality at sea, and because this maintained the status quo, it benefited the Union by preserving their dominance in their home waters, therefore making victory in the conflict more likely. Yet the Nashville also set vital precedents in international law for the Confederacy, securing belligerent status for their warships. Disregarding vociferous Union protests, the British stated officially that she was not a pirate but a commissioned ship of war with rights to a safe port and repair facilities. These rulings were crucial to the work of subsequent rebel raiders, including Florida, Alabama, and Shenandoah. Confederates hoped that these raiding activities would push exasperated Northerners toward voting for the 1864 Democratic presidential candidate General George McClellan, who was expected to end the war. In addition, Confederates assumed that aggressive threats against Northern shipping would destroy the Northern merchant fleet and draw the Union Navy out to the high seas to protect shipping and catch the Confederate raiders, thereby weakening the blockade of the southern coastline. But the blockade, porous at the outset, became increasingly effective as the war dragged on. Union strategy continued to focus on strengthening the blockade, and Secretary of the Navy resisted Confederate bait by not diverting naval strength into a hopeless oceanic pursuit of Confederate raiders. Yet they were to have an effect on the Northern Merchant Navy. Confederate commerce raiding pushed the fleet into a rapid decline, comprising both wholesale physical destruction of Northern shipping with a panic-stricken flight from the flag, a massive transferring of ownership to non-US flags. Although US commerce rebounded in the post-war period, most of that commerce was not carried in American bottoms and never was again. The US government argued that Britain was responsible for ship losses because the government had failed to prevent Confederate purchases of vessels that would be converted to warship within British neutral waters. A tribunal eventually awarded the US $15.5 million, but rejected the notion of collateral damages. In reality, Nashville's brief cruise provoked the first of many bitter political exchanges over the subject of British support for Confederate cruisers, which would extend long after the war. Today, the berth of the Confederate ship Nashville in the port of Southampton is occupied by a new 5-star hotel, where it is possible to look out across the waters upon which the Pilgrim Fathers first set sail for the New World, and the greatest armada ever was assembled in 1944, and consider how the relationship with the US was forged during the events of the American Civil War.